My ideal gaming space is comfortable, stylish, and keeps me competitive no matter what I'm playing. The PowerA Spectra-enhanced wide controller for the Nintendo Switch ticks all the boxes. Officially licensed by Nintendo, it is an epic upgrade for your Switch, here to illuminate your gameplay these Easter holidays. There's tons of cool features in the Spectra-enhanced controller, all for a great price. Light up your space with 8 programmable LED colors, boost your advantage with 2 mappable buttons, reduce latency with a 3-meter snap-lock cable, and plug in your headset with an inbuilt headphone jack. And you have more control than ever with precision-tuned analog thumbsticks with smooth anti-friction rings. Illuminate your gameplay these Easter holidays with the Spectra-enhanced wide controller for the Nintendo Switch, available at your local JB Hi-Fi store or online at jbhifi.com.au. Hello and welcome to the Press Start podcast, Press Start Australia's weekly video game discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ewan, joined today by my fellow gamers, James.
Hello.
Shannon.
Hello.
And Brody.
Hello.
On the show this week, we've got loads to talk about, including The Division, more from Aloy and Horizon, and a crazy realistic new game that's got everyone talking. But first, we've had to hold this episode just a little bit. It's coming a little later in the day than it usually does, because, Shannon, you got to play Tears of the Kingdom. I did have in the title there, you lucky duck, but I don't want to upset James by talking about ducks any more than we did last week.
And yet
Everyone knows what we're talking about. It was all off camera, so stop bringing it up.
I'm sure there's heaps you'll want to delve into and unpack, but first, tell us what you were able to play of Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, so it was honestly like the complete opposite experience that I had with Breath of the Wild demos before launch, and Nintendo were open about that in the sense that that was really just starting the game and then being let out into this world to do whatever you want. This was very much a guided experience, like really to show off the new abilities, which we'll talk about. Literally nothing story related, so not a single like cutscene, not a single like story mission, nothing to do with any kind of story or like a hint at what the mission looks like or anything to do with that. It was very much about the sandbox and what they've shown in trailers so far.
So just like kind of almost like a tech demo to kind of tinker with its systems and its mechanics, that kind of thing?
Yeah, essentially. Like it was tied to things, like some of those things I can't talk about, like even though they weren't story related, like there were certain things that made sense in the context. I think it made sense in the context of using those abilities within that world. Like nothing was like, wow, that's how that works, or wow, that's totally different to what they've shown off. It was more about the context and actually getting your hands on some of those abilities.
Right. Nintendo was keeping their cards close to their chest. I love it.
Yeah.
A big feature of what you were able to play was centered around the crafting, which we've seen a little bit more of in the most recent trailers. Can you tell us how that all works and how you found using the new crafting tools?
So Master Hand or Ultra Hand, I should have really pulled something up before this. I think
Master Hand.
Ultra Hand, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ultra Hand is the main ability that I use, and that is the one where you essentially can pick up most things in the world, whether it be things like jets or rockets that you pull out of these little plastic capsules that you get out of a vending machine. So they're one use, so you can pull out a fan anywhere or a portable cooking pot, and once you board it out of that little plastic container, like you can't put it back in. So they're single-use items that you can then attach to planks of wood or rockets, or I think even Link himself, and then use them to activate as a one-use item with battery power that replenishes as Link goes on. So it is really sandboxy, and it's also really intuitive. Like my big concern, just because I'm not the biggest like builder in games, I don't really like starting from scratch and having to come up with these insane creations. Like it is really intuitive and like super easy to pull things off if you put it in the wrong place, like really easy to rotate it. So it works well, which is what you'd expect from a Nintendo game. So my fears of that were definitely quashed. And I think as far as like sandboxy games go, I think this is going to open up that whole genre to a lot of people.
What sort of stuff were you making?
Mostly vehicles, so like planes, cars. Again, it was very guided, so like there was minor variations of what we could do, but it was very much like solve this puzzle, which you would make a car or something that floats upwards. Then there's random other items like hot air balloons that you pull out of these plastic canisters, and obviously they're like items that you use to get up in the air. But then you can also attach a steering wheel to any of these things as well, so they're all fully controllable, whether that be a plane or a car.
One of my favorite things about Breath of the Wild was that you could kind of, like, you were given the very loose instruction, I suppose, of like, okay, I need to get over there. Over there means crossing this river, but if I jump into the river, I get washed downstream. Like, the current's too strong. And so you'd have to kind of go, okay, if I cut this tree down, like up the river, it falls in, creates a bridge when it's stopped by some rocks. That kind of environmental puzzle solving. How does that change as soon as you add these kind of crafting mechanics into it? It sounds like with loads more possibility, you kind of have to make the puzzles even more complex.
I will say as well, like, the one thing it really does change is I'm assuming it opens up a lot of different ways to solve any puzzle within the game. Like, even to the point that sometimes you're really overthinking it and thinking you have to create this new object or build something, when often it's just like spinning a dial or something really simple. That's the bit I'm not sure about. I wouldn't say it changes things dramatically, but I will say, like, because you can even just pick up 5 logs and put them together to create a barrier and stop a door from closing, like, it opens up a little bit more from that aspect, but nothing. Like, the puzzles felt familiar, right? Like, they felt like they belonged in like they were in Breath of the Wild. Like, nothing that I experienced, and again, this is after 2 hours within the game, felt dramatically different. It just felt like there were more options within the world.
How long was it you were able to play the game? Was it a couple hours?
Yeah, an hour and a half, 2 hours, I would say. And yeah, that was maybe like 3 or 4 puzzles and one like major like combat scenario. But that's the other thing I want to talk about. Fuse was another really cool ability, which is the one where you can essentially fuse any item to anything within the world. So you can put a rock on a branch to make like a hammer type thing and increase durability. But then you can also fuse literally anything to your arrows. So to my knowledge, like, I didn't pick up any like elemental arrows within the world, but you would attach like jellies and even the rockets and jets to your arrows to change their abilities on the fly, which was really cool.
I was going to ask how it influenced combat at all. Like, we saw in the trailer kind of attaching, I think it was like a boulder to the end of a branch to kind of make a club. Did you kind of experiment with different kind of melee combinations as well?
Yeah, again, super limited, but definitely it still, again, felt like Breath of the Wild. But again, I'm saying that and it probably sounds negative, but I feel like that was deliberate in their attempt to like have you fighting enemies that you knew from Breath of the Wild, right? Like, to not spoil anything. But yeah, definitely, like, shields, you could attach mine carts as your shield. Like, you can literally attach anything within the world to your shield and sword. And whilst I didn't get a huge taste for like the breadth of things that you would be able to do that with, like, I got a sense that, like, yeah, wow, like, literally anything in this world I can attach to an arrow, my sword, my shield. And I think, like we just touched on, like, that'll make for really cool puzzles and things like that, I'd hope.
James, I might come to you. Having heard from Shannon now, having seen some of his gameplay as well, read his preview, like, how are you feeling about Tears of the Kingdom at this stage and it adding more to Breath of the Wild? Do you feel like it's adding sufficiently new mechanics to keep you interested?
Yes, kind of. I don't know. I think, like I was saying to Shannon, like, I know there are other people who are like me. The issues that I have with, like, Breath of the Wild are all no-go zones, like, with this, like, with what they're showing. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not marketing. Yeah. Like, even just not even the preview, just the stuff that in the trailers and stuff, like, they're very, like, you can kind of put stuff together, but they're definitely, like, keeping it all a big secret, which, like, I can appreciate. And I feel like games don't do that anymore, right? Like, I feel like we know everything about every game before it comes out. And having grown up in an era where there wasn't a lot of internet, or there wasn't as widespread as it was. Like, it was, you buy a game and there were all these surprises. So I can appreciate that Nintendo is creating that again in an era when I didn't really think it would be possible anymore. But on the other side, like, obviously I'm very skeptical about it all. And like all the questions that I would want to ask Shannon about this demo doesn't sound like the stuff that he's experienced. Like, say, are there dungeons? Are there set items? All of that kind of stuff. That being said, my interest was like at 2 out of 10 before, and when I watched,
that low.
Like, I liked Breath of the Wild. I can appreciate what it did, but it just wasn't like it was a great game. I just didn't find it to be a good Zelda game. And I know that that's controversial, but I still enjoyed it. But it took a lot of the wind out of my sails for the franchise. So, what my point is, though, is I feel like seeing everything they're doing with the weapon fusion, the skills like Ascend, all of these like things that I think I've said this before, but like all of these little bits that have brought my like attention and like interest way back up, because it does seem to be addressing a lot of the problems that I had that weren't, say, dungeon based or whatever. Yeah, does that make sense? Does any of that
absolutely?
I feel like I just like vomited everything I think about that game.
And what with to James's point, like I feel like, yeah, all of this, if there is dungeons and these like really crafted experiences, I think that is the one thing that was missing from like Breath of the Wild. I don't think anyone can discredit the fact that it was this big open world where you could do anything and play differently.
I've always said that like all of those systems and the physics and all of that kind of stuff are all fantastic. And now that they've got such a solid base to build upon. Like, now, like, give me some like really well designed content that isn't shrines, like this really cool fucking dungeon to use all of this cool shit, like almost like an immersive sim. Like, go into this dungeon, do whatever you want with all of the different systems that interact the way that they do. You know what I mean?
That's really what I'm hoping to see as well. Like, given the kind of creativity that it invites in approaching the problem solving with all the crafting that Shannon's alluded to, like, I kind of really hope we get to see more of that. And I feel like you could have these contained spaces within the kind of floating islands and stuff and trying to traverse around those.
Yeah, I will say, like, the verticality, like, is what felt new to me. Like, getting up to the Sky Islands felt really unique, and going across those, like, they felt like they provided different experiences. And then going below ground into caves felt different than anything in Breath of the Wild. And similarly, like, the one thing I hated in Breath of the Wild was stamina, and like having to climb these big ass mountains that it'd start raining. But I feel like being able to just strap a jet to anything and fly up it really alleviated that.
That excites me, that you don't have to go through all that again. I feel like they've done that. That shtick's happened once. I'm obviously very critical of the climbing in Breath of the Wild, done that to death. But I'm glad to see them just change up that approach in the game.
Can you talk much about Underground?
Did
you do much Underground?
Not a huge amount.
Like, I can see how like the sky stuff could be cool, but to me, like, everyone's like, there's like an underground map too. Like, that just sounds like one giant sewer level in a video game, and I hate that shit. Like, does it actually feel like more than just tunnels, or is it literally just? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know how like underground and sewer levels in games are generally like.
No, it felt like a part of the world. Like like there. For instance, like I went into a cave, and then there were the new enemy types. New like ways to new puzzles to solve, and then there was like a minecart section which was a bit like Ratchet and Clanky in terms of like, I can't remember where that led to, but again, it was really limited. It just felt different, but I get what you mean in the sense that like it could feel
just like lots of barren tunnels. Like, that's what I imagine. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess like my hope is that they're going to lead to dungeons, right? And like that's what that is going to be about. But if it doesn't lead to that, I can see how it would just feel like they're all the same, one and the same.
Brody, where is your excitement levels at for Tears of the Kingdom at this stage? This close to launch.
Not through the roof, I suppose. Like, I didn't really play Breath of the Wild all that much. I maybe tried it for an hour, but a lot of the things that I don't really like about games like that sort of turn me off. Like, I don't like weapon degradation, and the stamina stuff while climbing kind of did throw me off and stuff. And I guess with this one, I've heard, I haven't paid too much attention to it, but I've obviously heard like that it could be like analogous to like Majora's Mask or something like that with a darker tone. So that would have been one thing I'd maybe ask Shannon, but it sounds like he can't really speak to that or didn't get an impression of that. So I might wait. I'll watch a few streams maybe and see how it looks, and yeah, if it does sort of strike that darker tone, I might get interested maybe.
Yeah, I really think they've alleviated a lot of the concerns, like the weapon degradation, like the fact that you can just grab a stick, grab a rock, and fuse them together, so you're not left without a weapon.
A huge thing.
I think
that was a big part of it for me too.
100%. Even like the portable cooking pot, like if you hit like a cold area in Zelda and you didn't have the right equipment to stay warm, like you would just die or have to run away. Where now you can just cook a meal and have. It sounds like really basic, but things like that like alleviate some of those really annoying parts. I think of the original for me.
Yeah, it does seem more like nuanced. Like I feel like a lot of the time you would just have to make 20 apple pies and just eat them every time.
A dream.
Just damn it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Whereas, I feel like you can probably do a little bit more with this.
Yeah, even kind of like traversing about the world, whereas that was kind of... I want to say painstaking, but that might be too harsh a word.
No,
like
it was at times. It was really annoying at times. Get to high ground and
glide, or just kind of trek along. Like you had the horse as well, obviously at times too. But like I think this sounds quite fun to get about the world, like coming up with new and inventive ways to stitch different mechanics together and fly or drive about.
It's, if you want to just climb the mountain and don't want to game it by jetpacking up, like it seems like you're still going to be able to do that. So I think it should be the best of both worlds. For people.
Yeah.
It's just, it's been like 6 years. Like, I feel like so much has changed with open world since then as well.
Yeah.
So they definitely had to like keep up.
Well, I feel like we're going from kind of lukewarm to warm-ish.
It's a hard one. Like I have literally zero understanding or thoughts about like how the game's going to open and how it's going to play out in terms of if it's going to follow a similar structure at all to Breath of the Wild or not, which I really thought I'd come away with in terms of like seeing Ganon's effect on the world and how that, like Brody said, the darker tones and what that's all about, but literally not a single inkling for any of that. So I'm excited to see what happens.
A pleasant surprise when the game does drop. Well, Shannon, thank you for sharing your review with us. Do go to preview, I should say. Do go and check out the full write-up as well on the site. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, we're going to clip out as well and put some gameplay to this too. So do go and check it out there if you want to see some of Shannon in action. All right. I think we should get on with the rest of the show. But before we do, James, I want to check in with you. Did you finish The Forest?
Nah, mate. We my group is hard to get together.
Right.
Now I know how you feel about playing all your Resident Evils.
Yeah.
Takes like 10
I still haven't finished 4 because I'm waiting to get the squad back together.
Yeah. I'm still playing it. Why? But yeah,
I was just curious. I want to hear about what you make of the end when you do get to it.
Oh yeah, no, I'll let you know. Don't you worry. I think I've got like 4 pieces of little Timmy's toy. No, we had a shit night last night. Like I pulled everyone into a cave we'd already been into, and then I got lost. Then they all moved on, and then I was like, I found another cave, but I'd actually got into the same cave again, but I found a katana. So not all was
nice.
It wasn't
that's a good moment when you find the katana.
Yeah. So
very well done.
Yeah. It was definitely my fault, but we're getting there.
Well, we'll just periodically check in on you with your progress of The Forest. Really I like this new emerging segment.
Interesting. No problem. James's Forest. What a segment to have.
Moving right along, but sticking with games that we've been playing. Brody, I was pleased to see you had the opportunity to play another Devolver game this week. I know you typically like them. Did you want to tell us about KarmaZoo and your preview of it?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about KarmaZoo. KarmaZoo basically is it's a cooperative multiplayer game, and I feel like they're few and far between. Like the singular pursuit is working together and all sort of driving towards one goal, which I found kind of refreshing. So basically, with the game, there's 2 modes. One of them is called loop mode, which I think is more like the story mode, if you will, even though it's obviously relatively light on story. And basically, you just go through like a run. It sounds like it's a roguelite, but it's not really. All the levels are curated and handmade, but they adapt to your level and your ability and all that sort of stuff. So basically, you'll play an animal avatar. You'll work through 5 levels, and then you'll by helping each other and sacrificing yourself, blah blah blah, you'll earn karma hearts. And you spend these hearts on new animals, and as you work through all 50 that there are, you'll reach nirvana, which is obviously the Hinduist end state. So, look, it's a cool idea. It's a lot of fun to play. Like, it supports up to 10 people, which sounds like a lot, and at times it is. It's a bit chaotic, but at the end of the day, like, still all gelling together and like finding the solution to like a relatively tough puzzle can be pretty satisfying.
Yeah.
But counter to that, there is a mode obviously that will satisfy the bloodthirsty competitive types like myself. It's called Totem, and it's basically just like a rapid fire series of mini games, basically like very Mario Party-esque or something like that. So the ones that we basically got to play were just like Rush, which are basically just like point to point races. Obviously, there's different animals and stuff, which were pretty fun. So yeah, look, it's going to be a bit of a fun game. I think it's all about working together, which is a refreshing time. Obviously, there's a lot of abilities involved with the animals and stuff. Like, I think there's up to 50, but there's not 50 unique ability types. I think they like fall into like archetype groups and stuff like that. So there's probably maybe 10 types that are shared by 5 or so animals. Yeah, bit of fun. It's cross-platform.
It sounds like kind of an ideal like party game. At least the cooperative element. Like, you got a few mates around. You're looking to play something together. Like,
it'd be pretty hectic, I think. Like, and I'm more. While I do think Loop is going to be ultimately pretty fun in the long run, I'm definitely in for the totem side of things and like the competitive runs and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, pretty keen. So yeah,
cool. And I wanted to ask you as well, sticking with the topic of indie games. Nintendo aired an Indie World Direct presentation in the past week. Did anything take your fancy there?
Not really. I was having a look at the list of games on the article that Kieran popped up. Probably the only one that does jump out at me, aside from obviously like Oxenfree 2 looks pretty cool. I liked the first one of that a lot, so definitely keen on that. But maybe that A Little to the Left. Like, I understand that that's a DLC or something, but I hadn't even heard of the base game, and it's got obviously pretty big like unpacking vibes or something like that. So, little Zen.
Blasphemous
2, of course. Yeah, I didn't really. I think I played the first one for about half hour on James's recommendation, and it was good, but I just fell off it very quickly. But I'm sure James is very excited for that.
I was beyond excited. I was
ecstatic, elated,
shaking in my bed. That's how there was vibration.
Are you being sarcastic?
Yeah.
Or just not?
No, I'm so excited. I love like these depressing Metroidvania. Like, there's like a new genre now, like melancholic Metroidvania vibes. You know?
Yeah.
Should we very briefly touch on Oxenfree not coming to Xbox?
Oh, yes. I missed that tidbit. Huh.
It's been a bit of
didn't the original like debut on Xbox?
I think After Party was Game Pass as well.
Yes, it was.
Who is behind this, James? Who is behind it?
Well, I have an interesting thing to throw in the ring.
Okay.
So
I then give us your thoughts.
I read somewhere that smaller pubs or developers are actually find it detrimental to launch games on Xbox because a lot of people don't buy games on Xbox because they're like, I'm going to wait for Game Pass.
So do you think that they launch elsewhere first and then wait for Game Pass to chuck a little bit of money at them to, bump up the coffers a bit?
Yeah, I mean, someone needs to leak a Game Pass agreement because I want to see what it looks like. Do you know, like in terms of money? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Because, like, I was thinking about, like, obviously Inscription came to Xbox last week, and that took, 6 months after everyone else, even though Devolver traditionally is quite a, heavy supporter of Xbox as well. Like, they release the games on everything, usually. And I thought about it, and I've been talking about it with people, and they're like, oh, I'll just wait. And I'm like, no, fucking play it. Like, it's good. Like, I can't believe I waited this long. Do you know what I mean?
You hear such mixed reviews. Like, you see, articles from, devs who say they could never have had the success they did if it weren't for Game Pass, but then...
But isn't that only devs who are on Game Pass?
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There was something about Hi-Fi Rush not meeting sales expectations this week, wasn't there?
I think Jeff Grubb said that, but then someone else...
and then they quickly
Aaron Greenberg came out and said that it hit all their expectations, as you would, as a PR guy.
I think Jeff Grubb just needs to take a bit of a break.
Yeah, but I would love to know, is Game Pass... I mean, obviously Game Pass is making money, but when all is said and done with these agreements, is Xbox seeing a return? Are the publishers seeing the return? I'm fairly sure we've had this conversation before, but if you're only spending $15 a month to play 3 games on Game Pass rather than spending $60 a pop for each of those games, there's just a smaller pool of money available to everyone. So I just don't see how that aligns with growing video game budgets and everything. But
that's not for us to be concerned about. We just enjoy the buffet.
Yes. I think that price of entry, though, is going to go
threatens
up
the sustainability of the industry.
I don't know. I don't think what Microsoft is doing is sustainable. I don't think to the devs' detriment, but probably to their own. I don't know. It's hard to know.
I just think we are seeing so many games now that skip Xbox or are late to Xbox, especially in the indie space. And it does make me... That's why I thought we should talk about Oxenfree 2 especially is quite egregious because Afterparty was a Game Pass at launch.
Yeah.
For the similar... I even think the first Oxenfree was.
It certainly appears to be a very conscious omission, right? If their previous game was a Game Pass game.
It could be PlayStation and Nintendo, either funding marketing or something as well. Or maybe just a time thing. Maybe they just literally can't get it working on all platforms day one as well. There would be an element of the Game Pass thing.
Yeah, then it's telling as to what they prioritize or what they don't. And if, you're right, that there's not enough
prioritize
return
PlayStation
on Xbox.
and Nintendo.
The first Oxenfree launched on Xbox as well as PC. So it came to Xbox before Switch and PlayStation.
I also feel with so much overlap between Windows and Xbox now, I don't know enough about development, but surely do you know what I mean?
It's not that much effort work.
Just copy and paste it.
Just tap the port button.
Couple of buttons.
Just submit it to the different email address. Do you know what
I mean? Oxenfree.exe. Just send it off.
Yeah. Right click, run as Xbox. But
yeah, it's a tricky one. I'd love to hear from...
Apparently it was announced back in 2021 that the game wasn't coming to Xbox. Interestingly. It was announced for those consoles specifically, but not Xbox.
I think just because it's got a date now, maybe it's to the forefront or something. But then Blasphemous, as an example, which I would argue is a smaller game than, say, Oxenfree. It's coming to everything.
Another Game Pass game.
No, it wasn't. Was it?
I'm sure Blasphemous was. That's how I
feel
played
I
it.
paid for it.
I wouldn't have bought it.
I don't know. Okay.
Well,
I wouldn't have bought it to try.
I hope we can find out more about it. Something we did find out more about this week was the future of The Division. Just these 4 segues. It's become my shtick, okay? We learned more about the future of Division at somewhat of a showcase that Ubisoft put together. The biggest feature was perhaps a deep dive on The Division Heartland, which is the upcoming free-to-play PvE VP multiplayer game. Try saying that 10 times fast. It's set in a rural small town America. The 5th year of The Division 2 was detailed with a fair amount of more content as well, and the mobile game The Division Resurgence is still on the way, expected in the next 12 months with registration open for a new phase of testing as well. So kind of 3 key Division announcements, that being The Division Heartland, 5th year content of Division 2, and The Division Resurgence mobile game. Brody, I might come to you first on this one. Are you as excited about the future of The Division as Ubisoft seems to be?
Most certainly not. I'm not excited about any part of The Division's existence. Look,
Do any of these 3 take your fancy?
No. I don't know. Maybe... I don't really understand it, to be honest. Is the Heartland a new sequel? Or is it an expansion of sorts?
They've described it's kind of I don't think it's a true sequel to The Division. I don't think it's The Division 3. I don't think necessarily it's their games as a service, infinite platform kind of thing necessarily either. Maybe it could become that, but they're kind of treading in that direction. But it's certainly described as a living game. It's much more kind of multiplayer only focused. I don't think there's much of a campaign or a story surrounding it, kind of based on what I was able to gather from like the 6-minute deep dive they did.
And that's
there's a bit of a story, but presumably only to kind of set it up. It's more of like
the thing I always bounced off with The Division. I tried the first one. Was like I was coming at it from like having played Destiny and stuff, and everything I liked about Destiny, this game just didn't do. Like I found the loot like extremely bland and kind of boring. Like I had no want to go after it aside from the bigger numbers, I guess, and like it had like really bullet spongy enemies at the time. Like I don't know if that's stuff they fixed over the years and in sequels and stuff, but just never really had the want to go back, I suppose.
I really love The Division 2. I think I might have reviewed it when it came out, and I certainly considered it like the kind of gold standard of like a game as a service game at that time, because it was just so densely packed with content and had a very clear sort of end game to it, which was quite a meaty thing right at launch. And the fact that they're now in like a 5th year of supporting that game, I think says to me that they got a lot right in kind of making game for a community there. That being said, after its kind of initial launch period, I did not go back to it. I don't know if I touched any of the DLC.
Were you reading
I'm surprised
your outro to that review when you said that just then? That spiel? Because that was almost like word for word what you said. You're like, it sets a new standard in the loot shooter subgenre. 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I certainly felt that way. But yeah, like it's clearly not appealed to me enough to kind of stick with it over that time. And granted, I haven't really stuck with any of those games for that sort of length of time. Yeah, I don't know. James, have you kind of considered going back into The Division at all? Or would you consider giving something new like The Division Heartland a go, a bit of a different take on the similar sort of thing? It seems to be dialing much more into those kind of PvP kind of parts of the game, which were a bit of fun in The Division 2.
Seems opinions divided on The Division, isn't it, Yui? No, I'm not interested, and I won't be. I don't, because like Heartland is like just The Division, but not the city. Like I can respect that almost, like doing something a little bit different with it. But then I'm like, but like I'm done with this like looter shooter games as a service stuff. I think I'm very much done with it, personally. I don't know.
I'm a little concerned that the gunplay like isn't tight enough to kind of support like the kind of stressful like PvP sort of encounters they look to be trying to create with The Division Heartland.
I just think like you've got Siege, you've got For Honor.
Sure.
Like you've even got The Division 2. Like why can't we just relax and just like reel it in from that point on? Like now we've got X Defiant.
Ubisoft are looking for a win though, James. Like
they're trying on. They've got a fucking win. Rainbow Six Siege has been going on. It's almost a decade. Like I feel like it's.
Oh, you mean like more ongoing games as wins?
Like they've got so many ongoing games already. Like For Honor has got so many seasons and stuff, and I know that they're all different games.
In saying that, it goes back to the Game Pass thing because they've got their service subscription thing now. So it's like
that
what
is
every
wild to me
going to
as
be
well.
doing.
That it's like it costs more than Game Pass. Ubisoft Plus does. Like I'm like
got to get that Siege.
Like for 47 Assassin's Creed games and 3 games as a service games. Like
you probably buy Siege for about $12 now too as well.
I think it's $10 at EB
like
right now.
all of EA's
like
as well, which is kind of
don't walk.
yeah, literally. I don't know. It just depresses me because like I know everyone hated them, but I loved Ubisoft when they were shitting out an Assassin's Creed game every year because they were still quite good. They had great worlds, considering they came together in a year. And now like all of their projects are just shifting to this, and it's just not my vibe. Yeah, like it's.
And meanwhile, we don't hear anything about Prince of Persia or Splinter Cell.
I'm like the Lord
let's
of...
talk about Prince of Persia.
I'm Lord of the Dregs, but like this is all dregs, and I just don't like. It's not my maybe Prince of Persia remake will save us. Like I don't have high hopes, if I'm being honest. That trophy list is still up though.
So hopes that it'll even release at this point.
I'm sure the developers are hoping it releases.
How long was GoldenEye's achievement list out before it came out?
You're right, but that's come out and come and gone.
That's right.
Already got the.
There is hope. There is hope.
There is. You're right. You are correct, Brody.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, the Division is not dividing and conquering me. Put it that way.
I'm holding out hope that the Division Heartland becomes something that would be my cup of tea. Shannon,
it's free to play.
Yeah, you
so
would jump
I feel
in
like
with me, right?
Yeah, well, you were not going to want to play with me, so don't even put that out there. But I think it could. I could see that releasing and having a bit of success. But I think James is right. Like, people are over this type of game now. It has to be really special or different.
I've said this before, but like when you launch games like this, you're competing with It's kind of like that World of Warcraft effect almost, where you're competing with those people who are already in this game that's established years in, and they've got those people in, and those people have invested all this time and money into these games along a long time. And what are you going to do that's so dramatically different that they're going to jump ship to you and put that time, because that's what these games are, right? Is like they want you to be playing. They want you to get home after work, do your dailies or whatever, and just keep playing that for the rest of your week. Basically, to some extent like that. And to get that engagement for that game when, like, they're already putting all this time to all the games. And some of them, like I said, are even already Ubisoft games. Like, they're almost doing themselves in. But, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't see people jumping off all these other games to try the Division Heartland.
Yeah. It must be pretty tricky as well, because, like, just the economies of it. Like, you need X amount of players playing your game for then a much smaller percentage of that player base actually investing money in the game, like buying cosmetic items or whatever, to then kind of support ongoing efforts and make it profitable, but still have the team there producing all the new content to support it. Like, it must be a pretty narrow margin sort of thing, especially nowadays when there's so many people that are trying to compete for a gamer's time and attention.
They could be. I mean, there's also that thing where people they try to attract. They call them like whales. People who put like a lot of money in, and they kind of balance it out for everyone else, which is like obviously.
That's me with Marvel Snap.
Yeah. But yeah, like I know what you mean. Whereas like with $60, you can kind of be content. Well, 70, whatever.
I wonder about something like Apex Legends though, which is kind of the only game that's kind of maintained my interest for like a long period of time, like years at this point. I've not really pumped much money into that game at all. And like, again, I'm going to guess in theory you could. How much would I? Maybe $100 all up, if I'm being generous. Like, considering the battle passes I've bought.
I think even I've
maybe
a
cosmetic item or two. Which is,
so
not
if
a lot.
you bought Apex Legends for $100, no, you can't even compare, can you?
But I didn't buy it. It was free to play as well.
No, I know. But what I'm trying to say is, let's just say that game launched in a more traditional, like an old school model, and you bought it at $100, and then do you reckon it would have kept your attention for as many years as it has?
I probably wouldn't have needed to, because they would have put out Apex Legends 2 like 2 or 3 years later, and then they would have had another $100 out of me. Like, trying to sustain this one game for a longer period of time, like, hasn't got any more money out of me than
So you don't like buy season passes and stuff like that?
Sometimes, not every season.
Yeah,
no.
There'd be people that buy them every single one.
I think when you think of Fortnite, like I think of people would have put hundreds into that easily with all the skins and stuff they've had.
Sure, I've probably put
and
more
FIFA.
into Fortnite, admittedly.
Yeah,
I think what's most audacious in all of this is that there's a Division Day. I can't believe there's a day.
Division Day. I missed that.
Well, that's what this whole thing was.
Like the day of the outbreak.
But wasn't it the same day as
They had the
what
Division
happened?
Day.
Something else happened that day. The Final Fantasy State of Play, I think.
Oh, right.
Maybe.
That's unfortunate.
Commander.
On which end?
both.
For the Division.
No, there was. I think it was Street Fighter.
Street
Showcase
Fighter.
Day. So of course, like that's
neither really broke through for any kind of.
Okay.
Well, true to form, we're not terribly enthusiastic for the Division, but I do hope we can be a little bit more enthusiastic for more adventures with Aloy. Certainly, that's what Guerrilla seem to be promising. It comes in addition to the Online Horizon project that's been talked about before, but saying that Aloy will be back for another adventure, whether it's added content to the Forbidden West. the Frozen. I'm getting them all confused at this point. What's the second game called? The Forbidden West? Have I got that right?
Forbidden West.
Forbidden West.
Thanks. Okay, that's relief. Shannon, my question for you: what would you want to see from another Horizon game? Do you hope this is Horizon 3? Let's call it.
It's hard. I found the second one a bit. I don't want to say over. I found the first one. I didn't really love the story of the first one in terms of like I enjoyed really just running around and taking machines down more so than actually going through the story missions. Like once you actually got to the end and realized what happened, like I think it was really cool when you found out like what Aloy was and that whole story. But for the second one, I don't know if things were just dropping, but it didn't grab me for more than 5 or 10 hours. So I think I'd love, it's not going to happen, but I'd love to see it stripped back like I would with any open world in the sense that like less weapons, I guess more of a focused, experienced. But yeah, there's no way that's going to happen. But where they can take it from here, I don't know, to be honest.
I mean, I certainly think there's certainly the story sets up a third game, and I feel like it's kind of an unruly sci-fi plot that isn't the easiest to follow at times, but I very much would like to see a conclusion to that story, which I kind of imagined to be a trilogy. Like I'd have thought we'd get one more kind of adventure with Aloy. But yeah, kind of like you, I wouldn't mind a more focused experience. I just don't think you can kind of deliver this like with this kind of trilogy of games. Like you kind of expect games to get kind of bigger and bolder each iteration. I feel like we would need to see a spin-off kind of Horizon game for it to be a more focused experience. That being said, Brody, what gameplay or design changes would you like to see to kind of bring you around on another Horizon game?
Yeah, I don't know. Really, I'm similar. It sort of comes down to that open world. Like, I really didn't put that much time into Forbidden West. I maybe played it for an hour, got the first couple of story beats, and then sort of bounced. And that was well before the game even opened up. And I hear it like has like a lot of bloat. So that wasn't really appealing. And
a game that does get better as it goes along, though. I'll say that. Like,
yeah, but it shouldn't take
a few things
5 or 6 hours for that to happen. I think James is in chipmunk mode.
No, it's always when, I
heard the squeak.
He's ready to start dropping hot takes.
I heard the squeak. Yeah, so look, I sort of do echo the thoughts, I guess.
You fix that.
I echo the thoughts, I guess, about maybe stripping things back a tad, but like you say, they're not going to do that with a game that continues to like escalate, but I'd hate to imagine where they'd go next and ramp it up again, like, because this one, introduced underwater stuff and I guess sky stuff to a degree. Flying, spoiler alert, if that's a spoiler. So, like, aside from a new location, I don't know what else they could really do.
Maybe they could just kind of guide the player a bit differently. Like, I feel like my struggle with Forbidden West was that it wasn't clear when you could just kind of power on with the story or when you kind of needed to go and do some side quests, deviate for a little bit, power up, get some new weapons. Like, I feel like if it kind of flagged your character's progress a bit better and kind of gave you clearer kind of directive, like, hey, go and poke around this area a little bit longer once you're at this power
like God
level.
of War,
go on.
Ragnarok as an example.
I think God of War kind of does that rather well. Or even just like presenting you with something that's quite difficult and going, look, like, feel free to carry on and come back to this later. Like, this you don't need to do now. Because there was a moment where I was like finding it quite challenging, and then I think I went to the store and discovered I could buy all these weapons I just didn't know were there, and I was like, oh my god, like, this is really opening up a ton of combat options. Maybe I just missed it, but there's something to be said about not throwing too much information at a player at any one time.
I would like to see what they can do when they fully like leave PS4 behind. I know that's like what Burning Shores is effectively, but that's still like a small DLC or an expansion in theory, so like tipping everything into a whole new game could be good. Because what's the one thing that I generally hear people talk about with Horizon? It's not generally the gameplay or any loop like that. It's how good it looks. So I think they could definitely take that up another level. But yeah.
But like, is my voice okay?
No, you're back. Pleased to have you, James.
But then, like, I think Horizon is so much more than that. I don't know.
More than its good
I love
looks?
the first. Yeah, no, I loved the first game. Like, I really, really, really enjoyed it. Like, I powered through it so quickly. I had to really force myself to finish Forbidden West. Keep going to say West, but West.
I nearly said the Forbidden Wilds. Confusing. I think the Frozen Wilds.
Like Waste, Wild, West. Which is it? Or all three? Who knows?
Horizon 2.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like, yes, we could maybe focus on the next one, make it look even better. But I feel like this is where, like, a lot of games are getting a little bit, like, strung up. Is like, yes, we can make them look, like, bigger and more expensive and stuff. But, like, what's the point if it's just, like, so... Like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Just stuff that like, people don't necessarily have an interest in playing.
Milquetoast. Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't want to engage with anything extra in Horizon beyond the main story.
Shannon's reaction to the word milquetoast, which he probably hasn't heard before by
is this a phrase? I'm not familiar with milquetoast.
It's got a Q in it. It's not milk. It's milk toast.
Oh,
anyway,
is it French?
It may be.
Right, so
I thought French toast was something.
the forbidden French.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like. It's hard. We talked about, like, I remember, like, when Dying Light came out, I was like, just keep playing to this point, and like it's like, I don't envy, like, with it, and this is why maybe I'm like, maybe we shouldn't make games as open as they are, because, like, there is such a challenge in getting people onboarded into these worlds with all these features, or people, like, keep playing until you get, like, this weapon and then everything gets better, but, like, you're not really told that, or, like, kind of pushed along to that point. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
I think it's hard to balance, like, having enough in the world that it feels like there's more stuff to do outside of the main missions, but then you can definitely go too far where it feels like there's too much and it gets off track. And for me, I think that's what some of these games are getting wrong. But then some players expect that, and I guess it's a marketing beat, like, to say there's more in this game than the last. Like, you have to almost up the ante.
I just think, like to Brody's point, like, if we get to Horizon 3 and it's only on PS5 and it looks better, like, if that's all there is that's kind of gotten better, like, I just don't think there's a point, you know?
Yeah, like, I certainly don't think the narrative, for me at least, is strong enough to drag it all along. Not like something like Uncharted or The Last of Us. Like, I don't think it carries the same, like, oomph, I guess.
And that's really, like, where I want Horizon to get to. And maybe it's now too late for that, but, like, I really kind of wanted it to be in the upper echelon of kind of, you know, tentpole sort of Sony franchises, PlayStation
I mean,
franchises.
I still think
like,
they feel that. Based on how much it's sold and how... I genuinely still think that is... I don't think you can say it's not.
Like, quality-wise, though, I don't think it's up there with God of War, The Last of Us. I mean, I even feel like Ghost of Tsushima, like, stands a greater chance at this point of being, like, a kind of marquee PlayStation game. Like, I feel Horizon's Legacy could kind of slip a little bit. And this is coming from someone that's, like, got the bloody Tremor Tusk up on their shelf. And the tall neck. Like, I really want this. Like, I love this world, and I want it to kind of... I want to be as excited about Horizon 3 as I am the next God of War, the next Last of Us. I'm just not... It's a different standard, I think, in my mind.
Maybe it's just
lots of... I don't know how it gets to that same level.
Sophomore slump.
Like, what?
Maybe sophomore slump. Oh my god, is this something else?
Like, sophomore.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sophomore slump. Okay, I get you.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I'm following you.
It's the WA accent.
I apologize.
Well, you're going to have to explain milquetoast to me another time, too. Look, we are going long. Do we want to touch on Unrecord as well?
Well, you've mentioned it, but let's make it quick.
Okay, we'll make it quick.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire, yeah. Unrecord, if you missed it in the news this week, is an upcoming game from a French indie studio Drama. It did the rounds, notably for its hyper-realistic looking body cam style visuals and its subject matter. I do want to start with the footage, or the gameplay footage that was released first. A lot of people kind of questioned its authenticity, given how realistic it looked. Brody, perhaps I come to you. Did you see the trailer and did you believe it to be gameplay, or were you suspicious?
I guess I definitely questioned it, like, at first, because it seemed very, like, I thought, how would they, like, animate the hands looking so, like, realistic, and, like, how would that work from a gameplay perspective to be so, like, erratic, I guess. But Yeah, it definitely looks phenomenal. Like, very excited for the future of like Unreal 5 if this is, I guess, early days of it. So, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, likewise, maybe I'm accustomed to seeing kind of body cam footage and stuff on TikTok, but I think at first glance, I just assumed it was another one of those videos, and then I saw the caption that it was actually like the trailer for an upcoming game. It's like, this is nuts. But I'd seen this before. I feel like 6 months, a year ago, some footage was kicking around of it, but obviously this is a fuller trailer, and it's captured more interest. Part of the discussion, though, was its subject matter, attracting criticism given that it's centered on a tactical police officer entering buildings and shooting assailants inside. Shannon, maybe I'll come to you. How do you feel about this? Do you think it's a little kind of on the nose what it's demonstrating, and should it kind of set a higher standard, higher expectations for police force in these circumstances?
It's a hard one in terms of like whether it should exist. I feel like you can't really say that it shouldn't, right? Like even The Last of Us Part 2 and a couple of other games, like killing people and seeing how gory that is. Like it's not meant to be fun. Like you're meant to kind of feel, I feel like we spoke about at length, like how that makes the experience immersive and you feel bad killing people. So it's a tricky one, but yeah, I don't know. Someone save me.
We're also.
I think I think that
want to say the wrong thing.
I agree. I know what people are. I know that I didn't realize this was an angle that was being taken by, because I haven't really looked into it too much. But like, I think there probably needs to be a bit more context.
Yeah.
Before we are quick to like shit on this. Like I understand, I totally get it. But I feel like the kind of like style that this game is going for, like that visual style, the body cam, realistic kind of tactical thing. I mean, if they change it to SWAT, would that make it any better? Because that's kind of what SWAT was back in the day. I don't know if anyone ever
It's
played.
not
You know what I mean?
also not that different to like COD or like a COD campaign, in my opinion.
Where,
like the jump isn't that different.
COD is a franchise that has killed babies, shot up airports for like
Exactly.
You literally
decades,
go into that house in London and just gun everyone down.
Exactly.
In the
That's right.
That's, I mean,
Yeah.
The difference is budget. Like that's the only difference. Yeah.
I think there's like nothing wrong with just like dealing with that as subject matter, but so long as it's kind of either drawing awareness, like highlighting what it's doing. I sort of hope that like in this case, the buildings they're entering, they're fully aware of like what's in there, and they're not shooting anyone that shouldn't be shot.
We are missing the context, so
we are missing that context. Yeah, and there's meant to be like a kind of police investigation. It's like you're solving kind of a mystery in the process. This game is out. So I'm prepared to give it the benefit of the doubt at this stage, but I can certainly understand why it would be like either distressing to see footage like this, or you'd have concerns about it at this stage for sure.
I also don't think that this game would be fun. Like I don't think it would be nice to play. Like I feel like FPS games have looser controls because that is what's better to play. Do you know what I mean? Like even Siege, which has like a slower, I guess more methodical kind of movement system to say COD, where you're like skating through things, just gunning everyone down. Like there's just I don't look at this footage and think, wow, this would be fun. Like I genuinely think it won't be as like enjoyable.
But I think that's why it's so dependent on like its story, and I'm guessing it's going to be like a 2 or 3 hour like game that you play through once, and there's some kind of reveal at the end or some kind of reason why you're doing this, whether it be like the person you're hunting down or some kind of theme that plays into it. But then I don't know, it's a hard one because then like GTA 6 will come out and you'll just be mowing down people in the street, and I don't know, I guess it's kind of like celebrated. So it's such a hard one. To gauge.
I think we need to be careful, like making the assumption that just because, like, we do something in a game or like behave a certain way in a game, that necessarily like translates one for one in real life.
But you're right. I mean, like when people are live streaming this stuff on TikTok, like it does make it hit home a little bit more with the way the internet plays into these
and
things
given the
now.
Realism as well, like I guess there needs to be a renewed focus on that too, given it does look so lifelike. And maybe, like in the same way that Spec Ops: The Line kind of drew attention to war crimes and that sort of thing. Like maybe there needs to be a mention of that within this game, or even sort of a disclaimer or something would maybe suffice. But it does bring up an interesting point, and I wanted to kind of reference this interesting story as well, that was spotted by Kotaku, and that the Red Cross are encouraging games and gamers to not commit war crimes in the games that they're playing, including not thirsting down opponents and using medkits on anyone that needs it, not just your squad mates, to name a few that they draw to. Do you think, Shannon, maybe to go back to you, like, we should be more responsible for how we handle combat in games? Brody mentioned Call of Duty, should there be more disclaimers in Call of Duty?
It's such a hard one because, like, you've got Nintendo like delaying Advance Wars. It's just come out now, and apparently GoldenEye, the same thing, like for different reasons, was delayed for the war. But then, we see COD come out without fail when there are clearly wars going on in the world. I don't know. I'm not the best person to comment on it. It's a slippery slope, right? Like, we have to either ban them all or...
Yeah, I mean, none of us have been affected.
It's only going to get worse
war.
as, like, realism becomes more and more of a thing. But, like, obviously, it's when this is happening within the world, like, for us, it's just a game, but for others, it's their lives.
Yeah.
I guess.
I kind of hope we'd be able to separate
entertainment
enough from games and what you play in a game versus what's acceptable in real life.
Yeah,
in the same
like,
way
we're getting into a whole other
that's...
conversation. About, like, whether violent games, how they affect me. Like, like we've all been saying that they don't at all, right? So to then start maybe thinking that they do is opening up a can of worms that I'm sure no one wants to really go down.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, before we move on to what the Wiki, I do have a rapid fire question for you all, and that is, according to new legal documents, Microsoft have a project that could take up to a decade to develop in the works. So my question for you all is, what could it be? Brody, shall we start with you?
Sure. So many to pick from. I might say Gears 6. I don't know if they'll get a handle on Unreal 5, and I think it'll take a while to come out. So, yeah.
In the spirit of taking a while to figure things out, I reckon it's the next Halo game.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say Halo Infinite.
Doesn't Halo Infinite still have like 7 years to run on its 10-year plan?
So Halo Infinite was in the sentence before on the court document, so it's not Halo Infinite.
Jeez, James really studied these court documents closely.
No, so if you look at the document, they've redacted an executive name and the title. So the executive is Shannon Loftus, and the title
the next
Connected Ventures 2.
He's scouring the documents for hope.
I think that's my serious answer. I think Everwild is probably their 10-year trying to work out what it is.
Do you reckon? I'm trying to, like, in terms of text, like, what text fits in there? Like, I want to get the Taylor Swift fans on this. They'll work it out.
Have you tried, like, putting it into Paint and cranking
And what's the exact phrasing? Like, they don't say sequel, they just say IP.
According to one Microsoft executive, blank, a forthcoming title from the blank franchise may take a decade to develop.
I think Elder Scrolls. It
can't
speaking
be
more seriously, it's Elder Scrolls, I think.
Oh,
Elder Scrolls doesn't fit.
It can't be Everwild.
As in, it doesn't fit, like, letters nor eyes.
Well, it wouldn't be Everwild, because it's a franchise.
What about Fallout?
No, I reckon it's Perfect Dark. I genuinely think it's Perfect Dark.
It could be anything.
Is it short? Could it be Halo?
Is it not? It's Killer Instinct? No.
I think Gears 6 could be a good shout. Because apparently I read an article today where like the voice actor for like JD, like one of the main characters, hasn't even been asked about it yet. Not that he'd admit if he had. So
surely Gears has got to be like soon. Like what else could they
I don't know.
shit out
10 years
quickly?
is a long time to wait for another Gears.
When they say, are they including development time that's already passed? Like, so if it's been in development for 5 years, it's only another 5 years?
Probably. They could.
I wasn't like present for the proceedings,
Up
but
to
I've
a decade
just got this document
to
to go by.
You may as well have been.
And it might not take 10 years. It might take 8.
It's Fable.
He says could.
It's all of them. It's all of them.
Oh, what if it's Hellblade?
Don't you fucking dare.
It was the first game they announced. It should be dropping any second.
What? Are you telling me that Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 fits in there?
What I want you to do is type it out
from the
match
Hellblade
font,
franchise.
try and get the sizing right, and then insert in and see if the spacing all looks correct.
Would you call that a franchise at this point?
Look, I've sent it to our group chat.
Yeah,
if you just want to have a quick look. Go look at the spacing. It's Hellblade.
Don't you fucking do it to me.
Because they have to take a trip to like Sweden or whatever.
It's definitely Elder Scrolls.
To take photos of like landscapes.
Yeah. Look at that spacing.
Yeah, I see what you mean though. Like Elder Scrolls doesn't look like it would fit in there. There's just not room for that many characters.
Fallout. That's my bet.
Fallout looks a little short. Halo definitely be too short. But Hellblade looks...
You got to remember that it'd probably be in italics. Right. That adds a little bit of space.
True. That does.
It could be anything.
I'm going to do a new feature article. All the titles in the same font and how they fit.
And how they would fit
in the redacted Microsoft Court document.
I mean, that's just Times New Roman, right?
Yeah, but it's still...
Surely allegedly done it. Have to be
allegedly.
No one else has done it.
All right. All right. What the Wiki is the Press Start podcast game show where the previous week's winner reads part of a Wikipedia page for an unknown game, and we, the contestants, must guess the game. A point is awarded for each correct guess, and the round ends after one person scores 2 points. Currently lead, we have Brody on 11, James, myself, and Kieran all tied on 9 points apiece, Shannon on 6, and James W. with nil points. As last week's winner, Kieran ought to be in the hosting chair this week, but in his absence, I will volunteer as tribute and host instead. So contestants, if you're ready, I have game number 1 all ready to roll. Gameplay is built around the walk and talk mechanic. Instead of dialogue occurring during cutscenes, speech bubbles appear over the protagonist's head, giving the player a choice between 3... James.
Is it After Party?
It is not After Party. No. Brody.
Fuck.
Is it Oxenfree?
It is Oxenfree. Well done, Brady. Snuck a point there. Takes up to 12. Game number 2. In the game, the story is mostly told through the eyes of Logan Walker, with several other playable characters, including an astronaut specialist named Baker, Sergeant Thompson, Elias Walker, member of Icarus and Brody? I'll be amazed.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2?
It is not Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. No. Member of Icarus and Logan's father, and the newer option to play as German Shepherd, Riley, the first non-human playable character in the franchise. So that is the end of the paragraph. So I'm going to give Shannon, then James a go, and then Brody. Shannon?
Call of Duty Black Ops.
You better get it right, James.
2.
I was keeping you hanging, but no, it's not Black Ops. James?
Is it Call of Duty Ghosts?
It is Call of Duty Ghosts. Well done, James.
Wait. There we go. There's a ghost.
Very nice.
Spooky.
So denying Brody the bonus point for a full sweep there. A clean sweep
I'm
there.
a bonus blocker.
I forgot about that.
That's what they call me.
Game number 3. Potentially the tiebreaker between Brody and James. Shannon, if you want to stay in it, this game's you. The game was first announced by Blizzard in September 2001. Released in 2004, development of the game took roughly 4 to 5 years. Brody.
Is it World of Warcraft?
It is World of Warcraft. Well done, Brody.
Banger.
On fire, Brody. Did good. You had a Call of Duty Ghosts too if it wasn't
I know.
those meddling kids.
I went too early.
And with that, let's bring an end to what was this week's episode of the Press Start podcast. Subscribe to us on Listener or the podcast service of your choice. Follow us at press.au and visit the site at pressstart.com.au. We've been joined today by Shannon.
You can follow me at Shannon Grixty on everything as of right now. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Go for it. Shan Cake is over.
Changed all your handles.
Yeah.
Wild.
Go
and check out his full written preview of
What about
Tears
the
of
old
the Kingdom
episodes,
as well.
though? When people go looking for Shancake_.
They will not find me.
All
They'll
our
be very
legacy
sad.
listeners.
Ewan's going to have to update all the episodes. With
Dub it over.
Shannon Grixty.
Also joining us today, it was Brody.
Thank you. You can follow me on most things at Brody_DG. Actually, I might get Shancake. I'm going to get the Shancake handle.
Do it.
I'm going to do it now.
Build some followers
Just
for yourself.
take all the followers from the past episodes. And last but not least, it was James.
Yes, it was me. You can find me at Jams, ATJAMZ.
Jamzy.
I don't think I'm doing anything at the moment, am I? Let me check.
writing anything? Got anything upcoming? I will say I'm very excited for next week's episode because we're going to be talking about things that I'm very excited to talk about. But that's
like what?
All I can say.
After the show, because I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't have to think too hard about what's happening between now and next week's show. That pertain to my interests.
Don't say anything because then we'll have to cut it. Just on that note.
Last of Us Day.
But until then, I've been your host, Ewan Roxburgh. You can follow me on Twitter at Ewan_Roxburgh. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, happy gaming. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Press Start podcast. Now that I'm done, it's time to pick up the controller and get gaming. But not just any controller. It's time to pick up the PowerA Spectra Enhanced Wired Controller for the Nintendo Switch. It's available now in-store and online from JB Hi-Fi, and believe me when I say the Spectra Enhanced controller is one of the flashiest you can get for your Switch. Just check out some of these features. LED edge lighting with 8 colors to choose from, a 3.5mm headset jack, a 3-meter detachable USB cable, and a soft touch feel with awesome ergonomic design. With official licensing from Nintendo and a 2-year limited warranty, you know it'll deliver the goods every time you fire up your Nintendo Switch. Illuminate your gameplay these Easter holidays with a Spectra Enhanced wired controller for the Nintendo Switch, available at your local JB Hi-Fi store or online at jbhifi.com.au.